Nadine, it is great to see you. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Before the call started, folks, I was in awe thinking, oh, that can't be a real background. It happens to be the actual background in reality where she lives. So those of you seeing this on video, she's on 300 acres with a private lake behind her up in the sticks, and she has great internet. So I think she's winning. There is a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said for that lifestyle of being out in the green and having access to the world and being able to shut down your access. So one of the things that really intrigues me about the work that you're doing is your take on sunlight. We live in a world where, oh my goodness, everyone is so afraid of the sun. And that's not your stance. And I really appreciate that, right? Because the sun, our ancestors have been under the sun since we started this party. And now all of a sudden the sun is bad. How can we look at this differently? How do you look at this? And let's just broach this subject from there.
Well, it's one of my favorite subjects. And it kind of is why we live here because, more than 20 years ago, I was definitely like, I need to just see the sun and the moon and have green around me and have access to like sunbathing and moon bathing and all that kind of stuff. So it takes a bit of planning with our modern lifestyle to be able to almost even get in the sun, if you know what I mean, like where you can just access a private sun moment, so to speak. But I think we all know, so we've been told the sun's bad, but I think most of us feel good engaging with the sun. We like sunny days. I know as a teen, you grew up in the 80s and it was all like, watch out and don't do all this stuff with the sun. I always just felt like, but it makes me feel good. And I feel like I just feel more whole. So, growing up and as I started to formulate, I endeavored in my 20s to look at what I could be putting on my skin in the sun when I'm in the sun and really understanding the sun, because all I knew is that inherently it felt good, even though the world was sort of shunning it. So our skin literally is designed to be exposed to the sun's rays. We have vitamin D receptors, thousands all over our body, and they yearn to receive and to be brimming with vitamin D in those vitamin D receptors. And if those vitamin D receptors aren't filled with vitamin D, then bacterial ligands can come into those vitamin D receptors and basically shut down our immune system. So now we kind of have like a scientific understanding for why at least 100 years ago, approximately, heliotherapy, Helios being the sun, so sun therapy, was actually in fashion, so to speak. So we start out the 19th century, 1902, with Niels Feinzen winning the Nobel Peace Prize for heliotherapy. And then another significant marker in heliotherapy was in the 1920s, where in Lausanne, Switzerland, you have a hospital where people are coming from all over the world, and it's up in the Alps, and it's all about sunbathing. It's really cool to look at the images in Google. If you just like Lausanne, Switzerland, Dr. Auguste Rollier, and there's these black and white photos where all the hospital beds are on veranda, kids are in these sort of diapers, all like sun tanning. And then some before and afters of like children with rickets, which is like a bone malformation. And then they're getting tanned and the bones are getting aligned. And so it was really cool. And that Dr. Auguste Rollier, really helped to bring a bit of a modern understanding with it. And so he had protocols where he understood if you start slowly but surely and you start in the spring and you start to build up the melanin, that is a safe way to engage with the sun. And another key thing that he discovered or confirmed was to not wear sunglasses. So you can wear sunglasses. There's times to wear them driving, but if you're like really intending to be in the sun and to sunbathe, you don't want to be wearing sunglasses because in the eyes are these very special cones that receive light and they directly give that information to the mitochondria. So it's very important to not wear sunglasses because you won't get all of the healing rays from the sun. So there are things that the sun gives us that we don't even really know everything yet. And I'm sure we'll discover more and more as the years go by. But currently, we know that engaging with the sun creates vitamin D. That's very well known. It's not really a vitamin. That's what we're calling it. It's more of a hormonal precursor. And it's really kind of lubricating for the inside of the body. And for many, many, like about 3,000 gene expressions need sufficient vitamin D. So when we're with the sun and we're getting our vitamin D, it's actually a water soluble form of vitamin D that's really cleansing to our blood. It creates a very healthy form of cholesterol sulfate, whereas a vitamin D supplement is a fat soluble form of vitamin D. I'm still glad we have it. It's very important, especially living in winters. We know that vitamin D is important, but we do want to also engage with the sun and get some of our D from the sun, because we're also getting other things like antimicrobial peptides, cathelicidins, another form of healthy cholesterol called lumisterol. And the sun isn't just about tanning moment or getting burnt or not burned. Of course, we don't want to get burned, but we want to understand how is the sun moving in our area throughout the day. So you're in Texas. So that's going to be a different, I don't know, are you below the 33rd parallel or above? That's sort of the cutoff line for UVA will leave above the, like I'm in the 44th parallel. So from October to about mid-February, there's no UV. And just explain that a bit. I'm sure we all have heard of UV, but that's ultraviolet. So really, what is that? And if we think about the rainbow, that color, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet being the last color of the rainbow spectrum. So that comes in a little bit later in the day. And seasonally it comes, it's not going to be here for some of us. So in the day, you have a window wherever you are from sunrise to a certain time mid-morning. Right now here in Ontario, Canada, it's about 8:30 in the morning when the UV comes in. But you've got a really beautiful window before the UV comes in of red light. And that is the OG red light mask. Like that's what, we're supposed to be engaging with that morning light. And for that, you don't need to sunbathe. It's just about being outside. It doesn't even need to be a sunny day. You're getting the infrared, the real infrared. And that speaks to our mitochondria. What I didn't realize is that melatonin, I always thought that was a nighttime secretion of the pineal gland, but that's only about 5% of the story. We're supposed to be generating a mitochondrial melatonin in the morning with our exposure to red light. So that melatonin generation within the mitochondria is also a sun protectant. So the red light time before the violet comes in also prepares your skin to get the violet rays later in the day. So that's an ideal time. Most of us don't have all that much time to sunbathe, but like, let's say it's a beautiful sunny Saturday. You'd be rolling out, hopefully at sunrise. You can see that. You can just be in the sun, and then you can have some sunbathing time once the UV kicks in. So it's also a different way to understand the sun, because it doesn't need to, it's not every second ready to burn you.
So you're in the 44th parallels, which is, I just want to make sure I heard this right. You're saying that you have less exposure to the ultraviolet or more exposure to the ultraviolet? Less because you're so high.
Yeah. And we're so far north. So yeah, October about 30th to mid-Feb, nothing.
Got it. Yeah. Far north versus high. Yes, of course. But the question then becomes, are there studies showing a difference in people that have the ultraviolet exposure in different monikers of health, vitamin D, immunity? Obviously, the buzzkill stuff is like, oh, you're going to get cancer. Obviously, you can't be out in the sun. It's dangerous. We'll talk about that. But the beneficial stuff that one would get, is it better to have that ultraviolet as well? Is it better to not be? Who's winning? The guys north or north of the
winning.
That?
Oh no, the below 33 parallel are winning. But you don't necessarily have to be at the equator. But that thing of, hey, all you need is 20 minutes. That is true when you're at the equator. Like that, you can really get a whole bunch of vitamin D in about 20 minutes, around between 11 and 1 in the tropics somewhere. You don't even have to be right on the equator, but you got to work it more. Actually, I was even in California in January, and I pulled out because I have a vitamin D app, And there's also a circadian app I use. Those are great because you can literally be wherever you are in the world, you put in your geographical location and how much skin you have exposed to the sun in that moment, and it will calculate your vitamin D. So you also know when you're complete for that day, which is a really good way. So I try and through the summer, I'm just running that, like I'm monitoring it, and then I'm making sure I'm sufficient in D, and then I don't have to take vitamin D supplements to the winter. But the D in your body is like a living thing. It has to constantly be, what do you call that? Like added to, or like, you know what I mean? It's not one and done. It's like a living thing that we need to keep supplementing through sun. And we're not really getting in our diet because we're not really eating like cod liver, things like that anymore. So it's scarce in the diet. So, you want to have that little bit of sunshine to go with the D.
Soluble vitamin D produced by the body versus fat soluble vitamin D that you're taking. Well, you're taking your D with your K and then you're good. The supplementation versus the natural production, what difference are we seeing in health outcomes for people who are actually producing it endogenously?
What we're seeing, I don't have like studies right in front of me, but we do see that either way, you want to get it in one way or the other. It does seem that the sun is superior because there are many micronutrients and information that we just don't get in a bottle of the fat soluble D. However, that being said, I have a book on dental care. So I've gone into dentistry a lot, and the bones and vitamin D are very connected. And I have seen personally, as well as seen studies where if cavities are happening in adults or children, that is a sign of vitamin D deficiency. And supplementing with vitamin D right away, usually starting at about a 10,000, titrating, keeping it high for a month or so. Then you can go back down to about a 5, really does cease the cavity, and in many cases is reversing the cavity. I do think it's so good that we have the vitamin D supplement because it is a bit of work to really fulfill your vitamin D needs just from the sun if you're not in the tropics.
Yeah, especially with modern lifestyles, right? You sit in front of a monitor, you run the car. It's hard to get out. It's hard to justify being out when the screen is. So let's talk about that. There's a lot of people now that are trying to biohack their way out of this mess by wearing blue blockers or red shifted stuff. How much of this full spectrum are we losing by thinking that blue is evil and red is good? And just a lot of the ways people are starting to think about light, I think, can be very granular and can be very siloed.
That is true. About 7 years ago, I really started following the circadian rhythm a bit more and not putting on blue light at night, that kind of thing. And I have seen a difference I do DNA testing. So I've seen a difference in telomeres, and they seem to be very stable from those practices. So the issue with blue light is that it has no infrared with it, and it's usually like LED. So it's a very hollow kind of form of light. So if for lights, you want to have incandescent bulbs, and you want to do we just put on amber at night. We used to do the red, but you can actually do amber, which is way more functional because in the winter here in December, it's dark at 4:00. So it was a big shift to the day. And I do at night, I put a red screen on my phone, and I do wear my red light or blue blockers. And I do actually think that is key because we're getting all this isolated non-infrared light. And so the blue light is separated. The blue light in nature, no problem, because you've got the real living rays with it. Red light in the biohacking world, it always comes with generally speaking, infrared. So LED, not as great as incandescent. However, with the LED, you're usually getting that infrared, which is that more of the life force, so to speak, of the light. I actually rewrote do you know the song, I Wear My Sunglasses at Night?
Mm-hmm.
I rewrote the lyrics to I Wear My Blue Blockers at Night. Because we do. So the idea is that you have bright days. So you can now some people go as far as saying, whoa, we got to wear sunscreen to be in front of the computer. I don't agree with that. And also most sunscreens are just filled with chemicals, and you don't need that. What you do need by your computer is you could do a flux or something like that helps with the brightness. So there are things you can do for that. And then you want to bright, like either lots of windows or bright light when you're with your computer. So bright days and dark nights. So then, when you're up past sunset, you want to have like, nice amber light, not be doing a lot of computer stuff without that protective lens. And then really blocking out your light at night. So no little tiny green lights in your room, like you can tape over them or whatever, and then use like a silk eye mask, because even your skin, like your toe, the cells there can know that the green light is on. You know what I mean? So the whole body perceives light, and there's no blue light in nature at night. As beautiful and luminescent as the moon is, it's not this like harsh blue light without the infrared with it. So I do, just personally, I have seen a big shift in my practicing, really honoring that circadian rhythm as much as I can in a modern lifestyle, and seeing a difference in my DNA.
What I'm hearing here is don't even have a red night light go dark at night in this time.
You could have red. I mean,
That's right. Not when the absence of light isn't a thing, in your opinion.
You need absence of the blue, of anything that has a blue light in it. So like me putting a red light, night light in your bathroom is great, because then you don't have to turn it on if you are going to the night. You want to, and as we age, our melatonin also dwindles. So you can have red light at night. I do think like a night light, that's a good tool, because you'll, get to the bathroom without turning on the light, because that will literally deplete melatonin. So you just don't want to have any blue light or green light at night. And then the idea too is that we're protecting our own melatonin, which I always thought melatonin was this nighttime thing. But in the morning, if we're out and we're getting that red light, the red infrared before the UV kicks in, then we're building up our mitochondrial melatonin, which also is sun protective. So that morning red light builds your skin and your body and your cells. It prepares the skin and the cells to receive the UV that would be later on in the morning. If I am sunbathing, I do like to try and get it done by high noon, which is usually, sometimes it's about 1 o'clock in areas. So you can always check out what high noon is for your area. It's a spiritual practice apparently to do that morning light, but also there's the negative ions are until the noon hour. So it's a better tanning situation.
Not all this noise about sunblock and cancer, and skin cancer is real. Obviously, there are things to be concerned about. How do you address this as you're giving this advice?
What we can see is that, first of all, just on a vitamin D level, is that over 3,000 different types of diseases manifest when we have insufficient vitamin D, including things that you may not think are related, like women that are pregnant and deficient in D. That can set up for a situation where the baby would have a juvenile diabetes situation. So vitamin D is like really essential. But if you have enough vitamin D, then your risk for things and cancers goes down, like even breast cancer. So we think of probably the sun because we think of not having sun because we don't want to have cancers. But what we are seeing is that it certainly helps prevent a whole bunch of cancers. But then you would think, what about skin cancer? And it does seem that melanoma, which is very severe and dangerous and often deathly, when we look at the studies, we see that those that live closer to the equator, those that are more outside recreationally, have less chance of getting melanoma. So that is very interesting to study. And then what we are seeing, and this is like a study, I think was the late 80s New England Journal of Medicine, before we were all on our computer screens all day, before LED lights were everywhere at night, is that it's fluorescent lighting and artificial lighting that was creating higher cases of that type of cancer. And then what we also see is soft tissue tumors grow in bodies that are insufficient in melatonin at night. So like a breast cancer, prostate, those kind of things. So there is a whole melatonin connection with the vitamin D that is very preventative for cancers. Then with the other basal carcinomas, like the topical ones, those can seem aggravated by repeated sun burning in a spot. But we're also seeing there's a fungal component as well. And for those types, there's some good work done by Dr. Simoncini in Italy. And he talks about topical application of iodine to really help that. And I have seen people clear it up and then get tested. So that's I would look into that protocol, because you have to get a certain type of iodine and you really have to have a certain way of painting it onto the spot. So there are those concerns where we don't want to get burnt by the sun. We want to engage with it. And nobody is getting cancer from having a tan. It's a repeated burning. And also, what body are you bringing to that sunshine? It does take two to tango. And so when we are in the sun, you want to be hydrated, you want to be healthy, and you don't want to be filling yourself with like Mazola and then applying carcinogenic chemicals to protect yourself from the sun, because there's a cocktail in there that can create other things. And I talk about this in my book as well, but I look at a Cochrane review study, which the Cochrane board usually takes a bunch of studies and then they make a new study from the studies. And they took about 14 studies on cancer and skin cancer. And what they found was that the more use of sunscreen, that the more cancer, freckles, and moles people would get. And one of the reasons, besides all the chemicals in sunscreen and things like oxybenzene, which aren't carcinogenic until they're exposed to sunlight, and that's been banned in sunscreens in Europe, but is still prevalent in North America. The issue, it's not really about the chemicals, but the other component of sunscreen that makes it kind of dangerous is that it separates the UVA from the UVB rays. So now we're in the sun. We don't have our own body system. We've sort of taken away our own body system of getting red and then telling us to get out of the sun. And we're just receiving isolated UVA ray without UVB. And isolated UVA can be skin damaging because you're not getting the full spectrum. So, for example, trucker going westbound every afternoon, same route, and that arm is just by the window, that arm will probably be more freckly, mold, because the sun is, when it comes to the window, you're just getting the UVA ray. So, you want to have a sunny home, but you don't want to be sitting in front of a sunny window all day, because you're going to get that isolated UVA. But we want the full spectrum. If we're going to be in the sun, we've got to get the UVB because we want to create the vitamin D and all that juicy stuff.
Some people in my clinical practice, and this is common, it's liver yin deficiency, and call it in Chinese medicine, photophobia. A lot of people have gotten to the point where, and you've alluded to this earlier, wearing sunglasses all the time because it's just everything's too damn bright. But you're saying that there is signaling to your mitochondria. You're saying that there is, Lord knows what other kind of signaling to the body's systems saying, hey, sun is shining, let's get going. So when you start to encounter people who are having a hard time with the sun, they're having a hard time with the brightness of the sun, how do you tiptoe them back into these circadian rhythms? How do you tiptoe them back into life in nature?
That's a great question. And we don't want to squint when we step outside, and especially for our children, because their eyes are developing. And we want to be able to walk outside and absorb all the light without squinting, which on a side note helps from getting crow's feet because your eyes are always relaxed. So a great way in is to catch the sunrise or the sunset as much as you can. I also think of that as sort of your daily birthday cake. So you can see that beautiful heavenly body rising or setting and just have a great communion moment and wish on some things, have a little meditation moment. And if you're doing that and you're getting used to the sun, it's very safe to look right at the sun for the first 45 minutes of the day. You don't have to look at it for 45 minutes, but anything like even a minute, 5 minutes is great. Standing on the earth with your bare feet, even better. And then get that morning infrared, the red light, and then start being in the sun at that first hour that the UV is coming in. And again, it doesn't mean you're going to necessarily be out for the whole hour. It depends on your skin and skin type. And then you'll just build up your melanin slowly but surely and start in the spring. And even now in the winter, I actually don't even stop. So I will sunbathe in the winter, even though there's no UV, just to keep it going.
This idea of being out there barefoot, there's so much anecdotal and now a lot of research going into these primitive tribes. If you look at their microbiomes, they must be eating so much, there's such diversity. But a number of them also point to the fact that these guys are barefoot dirt. And there are elements to soil-based bacteria. There are elements to the microbiome that infuse through the skin. Is that something you've seen with the people you work with? Is the microbiome being accessed through the skin, just like the sun is being accessed through the skin?
Yeah, totally. We're probably a lot of us familiar with our gut microbiome, our mouth microbiome, but the skin is a huge microbiome system. And so it needs the sun to communicate, and the surface, our microbiome loves the sun. And then that sun touching our skin communicates to all parts of the body, including our gut microbiome. And that's where these felicitins and antimicrobial peptides are created, which are just bigger words to say good stuff for our immune system. So really, there's every aspect of the sun, except obviously overdoing it. Just like everything, we don't want to overdo it, but every aspect of the sun is literally for our health, our immune system. Our skin is a part of our innate immune system.
There is so much more coming along these lines because we have in the past 2 generations, like all these stupid creams and potions and lotions and chemicals that we've been sold, these scented stuff, just poison putting on our skins. And now we're realizing there should be earth and dirt and sun on our skins. And so I feel like we're waking up from a bad dream. And we've been duped for a very long time to say nature bad, this CPG company product good. And so getting folks out of this hamster wheel, getting folks out of this fear-based reality that the sun is cancer and the earth is dirty and all these things. How do you start doing it so that people have the proof points to say, hey, I think this is working. Hey, look, I didn't die.
Yeah, well, really this fear of the sun really came into our culture around the 1950s with the advent of a lot of different chemicals, and then everything, right? Better living through chemistry or something, I think was the slogan back then. So yeah, we have to undo a bit of that, but we were managing the sun before that. And then plus our modern diet and what we aren't getting, that kind of stuff is making us, and then adding the no vitamin D in the sun to that is very much making us kind of weak and sickly on a different level. You would just feel, just getting out in the morning, getting that red light and watching the sunrise, you're going to feel that on a lot of levels. And then as you go more into the sun and you're building up your melanin, it will tell you everything you need to know. Your disposition will be a little more up. You will have a stronger immune system. You'll build up that storage. It hopefully will take you through some of the winter months, but you do feel a stronger constitution on a physical, emotional, and mental level, I say, with the sun.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Mood. Mood's the first place I've seen with patients is just elevated mood, more energy, more optimism, just a little bit more pep in their step. It's subtle, but it adds up. It accumulates to the point where you just see them doing better, right? And then it's just a question of what lapse in focus and advent of new self-sabotaging behavior makes you forget all of that and go back to feeling miserable again. And that's the problem is we're just so damn distracted. We can't recall what made us feel well yesterday.
Totally. Luckily, if you are sunbathing, you're probably not doom scrolling. So it's a good activity to swap it out with. I know, but as I was growing up, when they were saying the sun's bad, I just was like, it just feels so good, So that's what made me want to pursue finding out really about it, which kind of like really, I was finding so many things were upside down about how we were told to care for our body and our teeth and that kind of stuff. So that is why I kind of am where I am today, is because I was questioning all that. And I thought we've got to have a different relationship with our bodies and with the elements, because to me, those gifts from the cosmos of the air, the ether, water, sunshine, earth is how we revive our being to be alive. That's it's not going to be another bottle of cream or another vitamin. It's really like learning how to engage with the cosmic elements, which we are totally in relationship with, even if it feels like in our modern times, we're good without it, because we've got our homes and our internet and our running water, so to speak. Now it's actually we're at a good place because we do have our homes and our shelter. We don't have to be totally at the whim of the elements, but we don't want to cut ourselves off from stepping on the earth and getting those solar rays to like kiss our cheeks in the morning.
It's funny as you look back generationally, within a couple generations, it used to be that the fair-skinned aristocracy were winning because the peasants had to work outside. And the tables have turned dramatically where you realize that the guys that could afford it are outside enjoying their lives and everyone else is sitting in some air-conditioned building in a cubicle staring at a screen and they don't get to see the sun. It's like the entire thing is flipped back and now people with money have a good chance.
Yeah, totally. Well, and some people might be spraying those tans on.
Yes, not like that, because I think that is a insidious part of the culture where it's approximating something that looks healthy and natural, but it's using chemicals and nastiness to do it. I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, well, I am a little shocked at like how prevalent it is. I can't remember the main ingredient, like a dihydroxymethyl, blah, 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 some crazy chemical. And again, we're like putting chemicals on on acne. We're putting chemicals to make a tan. And in the meantime, like if we just went out in the sun, like it would be taking care of us beyond the physical. So it's interesting because we're still have an aesthetic, I think, culturally, where a tan does seem like a sign of health. So we're doing it artificially.
Mm.
And yet, obviously, we're not gaining all that beauty of that interaction, which again, we know what we're getting. And there's a whole mystery to like things that we know are beneficial, but we haven't even quantified yet. I'm sure that's to come, right? More discoveries of why it's good to be in the sun.
It's almost like a cosmic joke. You could live a good life and jump up and down, have rosy cheeks because your blood is flowing, or you can buy something from the cosmetic counter and pretend that you have red cheeks. You can live a good life and get a tan, or you could spray it on and get cancer. It's a funny reality you live
in. It is. And it's really, I think, really sums up like the sort of where we're at with the choices that we can be making these days. There's that bifurcation of like full on synthetic. And then there's just the people trying to hold on to nature and tune into that.
Yeah. Listening to this right now, folks, wake up and smell the animal farm, right? Like this is either us snapping out of it, returning to the elements and thriving under the sun, the stars, the moon, and all these natural forms of light that our ancestors have been exposed to for millions of years, or buying chemicals produced by people that are advertising them to you to pretend that you have that in your life and spending hard-earned money on it. It just sounds so dumb when you say it out loud. Nadine, what a pleasure. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Where can people find you? How can people read more about your work, what you do?
Everything, my work is at livinglibations.com, and my book, Renegade Beauty, which has a juicy sun chapter, is on our website, plus wherever books are sold. And it's also available as an Audible. And so is the dental book as well.
Amazing. Amazing. We should do a part 2 on dental.
Oh, that would be fun.
Conversation. Yeah. We did an 8-part series on oral health right as the pandemic was coming out. And so we're about to release. Yeah, there's a lot. My wife's a dentist. And so the oral health thing is also a cosmic joke, right? Just nuking the bacteria in your mouth and they get it all backwards, right? And so like, really good things happening in the dental space.
Your wife, that's so awesome that she's a dentist and that, you're this way. That is super cool.
So we'll do a part 2. Really appreciate your time and we'll see you again.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.